I'm here with Kristen. We're in Darlington, Pennsylvania. We're halfway through a meeting here with several of the Pennsylvania state representatives. I saw you in the back here with this. I'm just curious, first off, I guess, what your take on all of this is, and why you're actually out here today to come see this.
Well, I applauded the last representative when she said, you know, we have no control over our federal railways.
I have dealt with Norfolk Southern in my capacity as Borough Council President, and I was told in no uncertain terms by multiple different Pennsylvania departments, I've heard from DCED, from PUC, from PennDOT, that we've given away our power to do anything about these railroads. And when it was mentioned earlier that the quote from Norfolk Southern was, "We have over 200 years of experience," I was told we gave away our rights 200 years ago, actually was the quote that I was told in trying to deal with Norfolk Southern from a local government perspective. I was very struck and shocked and a little bit horrified earlier when it was mentioned that we have Department of Environmental Protection, we have emergency management, we have all of these different layers of things working together, focusing on statistical models, et cetera. But ultimately, it sounds as if the decision about what to do was just made by Norfolk Southern.
I mean, Norfolk Southern is dictating everything to us, and this is a public service announcement that was put out at 3:16, and it said just to evacuate a mile. So this is 4.3 miles. This is my house. We got another alert at 15:46, which is 4:45. I believe they ignited the train car around 4:15 or 4:10 or so. And this is from the top of my hill. We are 4.3 miles away. We are not in this mile or the 2 mile. And it is our understanding that it was the evacuation for the mile to 2 mile was because if the train car exploded and there was metal and debris flying.
Yep.
So this is the rest of my house from the window, and so my windows were all taped up and plasticed because I didn't have time to evacuate.
Right.
And so after this, I sheltered in place in the basement, and stayed there for probably 8 to 10 hours just to make sure. Watched the beef cattle that were in our pasture, making sure that they were still alive. I mean, this is a disaster. It's not a drill, and somebody needs to be accountable. And I think we're as a public and as a township and as a people who are concerned are very smart and very educated, and we're not going to stand for this.
Right.
So I appreciate everybody that's coming out and stuff, but it needs to be addressed now. It's almost 7 weeks this has happened.
Right. Clearly, it is ridiculous that this hasn't been taken as seriously as it definitely deserves to be.
Right.
You can clearly see in a lot of these photos here that this clearly went right over your house and your property.
Right. And then over here, you don't even see the flag waving in the wind. There was no wind. Like he said, the DEP said that they waited, and then there was the shelf that hovered over, so then the smoke stayed in the area. So yeah, we didn't see birds for a couple of weeks. We looked at our streams and our ponds. There's no tadpoles. There's nothing.
Right.
And
you mentioned you have livestock. I mean, that's a big concern. We've heard a lot of people talking about dioxin and the potential effects of if your livestock are grazing in a field. I don't know that your situation where you are. If this stuff settles in the dirt and in the soil there and the grass is growing with it or any crops, it's potentially going to, impact the meat that the cattle's producing, if it's a dairy cow, potentially into milk and whatnot.
Right.
I don't know if you do this commercially, if it's more for yourself, but either way, I mean, are you concerned about using your livestock in the future for food?
I know that the gentleman that has his livestock on our property is extremely concerned. There's a team of farmers of beef cattle that have gotten together, and they're just tired of the disinformation that keeps on coming out from everywhere. I mean, you go over to Ohio to the Norfolk Southern table, and they're like, "No, you're from PA. We don't need to deal with you." Like, where are we supposed to go? We had a township meeting last night, Darlington Townships, And our supervisors do an excellent job, but they are getting nowhere.
Right.
Norfolk Southern just turns them away. They say no. You know, we had people that were evacuated that are in Darlington in that mile radius. They go to get refunded. They say, no, you're from PA. Yeah. So it's
and it's frankly, even for some folks in Ohio, I mean, I've talked to tons of folks in Ohio even who are like right on that line, right on the mile-ish line, who are clearly affected by this, and Norfolk Southern won't help them at all.
But it wasn't even, so the mile line doesn't even make sense because it was just because of the metal. If the
car explodes, metal's going to go all over the place.
The wind, I mean, you can tell just today how windy it is.
Yep.
But, I mean, that was from the top of our hill.
Yeah.
We saw that.
Yeah.
And then when it started to come over, I was like, I'm saving my life and my dog's life. You know what I mean? And it's just something that is regrettable that it happened, but yet again, it's a federal railway. We should have federal protections, like the last representative said. Stop letting Norfolk Southern take the lead on everything. Like I heard in the Senate hearings that they said that Norfolk Southern didn't even consult the company that put the vinyl chloride in the car.
Right.
And what was their suggestion to do with it?
Right.
They didn't even do that.
And again, we heard here today and also a little bit during the Senate hearing that, you know, initially it sounded like they were going to do the quote-unquote controlled burn with the one car, but then at the last minute, they shifted it to 5.
Right.
And it's like that there's a major difference in doing that with one car that maybe would have needed it to be done versus setting 5 of them on fire, and also not giving folks, to your point, like the correct warning about this and what actually could happen.
I do actually, in there, I brought the brochure from the Beaver County radiation nuclear plant. If there's a disaster there, they have a 20-mile radius of an evacuation procedure and stuff. Why didn't PA ignite this at 8 o'clock in the morning that day and say, we will take the lead. This is a hazardous material. It's almost as bad as radiation. This is what we need to do. They are set up to do plans post hazardous derailment. Why are they not involved? They're only 20 miles from here.
Right.
So it goes a long way that everybody has got to start to communicate. You know, hunting and fishing, huge around here. That's people's staple food, especially with the way inflation is, that you can't afford to go out to the grocery store.
Right. And I think that's missed also by a lot of folks. Like a lot of the media covering this is from the coast. They're not hunters. They don't understand that, like, you know, your whole family will go out and hunt. You put, you know, save the deer meat in the freezer. You eat it throughout the year.
Right.
Like that's a huge missing piece to this is hunting, the agricultural side of it.
It is. I totally agree. I totally agree.
Hopefully we start to see, I mean, I'm frankly not holding my breath for it, but hopefully we see some folks. There were a couple of representatives asking some good questions in there, which is a good start.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, I think some of this is going to have to come at the federal level as well, though, and I haven't seen enough being done there at all.
There's, you know, I'm not concerned with President Biden. He could do whatever he needs to do, but Pete Buttigieg should be here.
Yeah.
He should be here, and he is not, in a lot of people's opinion, following up on his duties as Secretary of Transportation.
Right. I'm here with Ashley Bennett. We're still here in Darlington, Pennsylvania. We've got the Pennsylvania House of Representatives in session just inside. You made the trip out here. We saw you trying to talk with a couple of representatives and folks who were testifying. What brought you out here today in person?
Well, I've been out here several times. What brings me out here again today is the lack of testing that has happened at our school district. My kids go to Blackhawk School District, which is 9 miles out from the derailment site. On February 6th, they asked that school, the government at the East Palestine Command Center had asked that school to evacuate based on the line they drew and the anticipated path of the flume. The next day, we got an email from our school district saying that the EPA cleared everything and we were safe to get back to school. However, I'm sure the nation has all seen the pictures, photos. No testing on surfaces, no testing on soil, no testing on water has been done. I did get a chance to speak with Brian Moore, who's the director of the Environmental Emergency Response Program, who said they have done testing on the Beaver Falls Water Authority the intake at the Eastvale site. However, it's only been done on VOCs. We need it on dioxins. We need it on PFASs. So they're in there saying that they're doing these testing, but they're not testing properly.
Gotcha. I was going to ask you, so this is my second trip out to the area. I've been focused in East Palestine and Negley and some of these places, but I've less researched on some of the Pennsylvania angle of this, and I was going to ask if they had been putting out the specifics on the testing, because you're running into the same issues over there too. When you do these broad tests for VOCs, you're not doing specific tests for the chemicals, but also the chemical byproducts of when everything was set on fire. Like if you're going to go around testing for vinyl chloride, you're probably not going to find vinyl chloride anymore because they set it on fire. You're more so going to be finding dioxin. You're going to be finding, they mentioned phosgene, and other ones are formaldehyde and things like this. A lot of that stuff hasn't been tested for, it seems like. Yeah.
And that is correct. So, and I've been here quite often talking and trying to get answers. The testing that the DEP is doing, the testing that these individual companies are doing, the testing that universities are doing. Everybody's testing for different things. I feel that I don't have trust in our government or agencies anymore at this point. I have 3 young girls, ages 7, 11, and 12, that I need to be assured that over the next decade of them and taking everything around us here, that they're not going to come down with cancer, or, whatever they're going to be exposed with for the next 10 years, that it's not going to affect their health. So I'm a very concerned resident here.
Yeah, no, I mean, I would be too. Good for you for getting out and, sticking it to some of these people and asking them the hard questions, because they need to hear it. And unfortunately, what we're seeing in East Palestine here as well in Pennsylvania is that unless you continue to make a fuss about these things, no one's going to give you the answers. No one's coming to come help. That is absolutely not how it should be. You would think that your government in this case would be, the EPA would have everyone's best interest in mind and be doing the research, doing the appropriate tests, and being as transparent as possible. And we just haven't seen that happen. I mean,
so be careful on how much you push and ask, because the police escorted me out of, I was in the questioning area yesterday here at Darlington Township and asking the DEP questions on, his imaginary 1 mile bubble. And the police asked me to come talk with them and I wasn't being nasty. I wasn't swearing. It was basic questions. You have this 1 mile bubble, you have their 2 mile bubble. There's nothing protecting, there's nothing stopping what happened. The reality of it is everybody in 16115, 16120, our agencies should be holding Norfolk Southern, at the very least, that lousy $1,000 inconvenience fee. It's sad. Our property values are decreasing. In the last 30 days, mine's gone down almost $16,000. I shouldn't be here standing here freezing in this cold, answering or asking these questions to these people. I'm a mother of 3. I should be home doing motherly things and working and stuff. And it's just ridiculous. It's ridiculous on how many 38 days that I've spent questioning with no real answers.